In the early 60s, the Corps, in association with the Connecticut Yankees Drum Corps from Stratford, Connecticut, held an annual Tournament of Champions competition between various marching and maneuvering corps. The contests were held at the Osborne Street Stadium, with crowds up to 3,000 attending. In June of '67, the Corps played a concert at Yankee Stadium between games of a doubleheader played by the Yankees and White Sox. It was also Danbury Day, when a contingent of Danbury residents was present, and Bat Day, when the fans were given Little League baseball bats. The Corps dressed under the stands near the Yankee bullpen in right field. When it came time, marched from the bullpen to center field, down the infield, and played 3 or 4 songs, then marched back.
The stadium was just about filled, and as we turned around and went back to center field, I noticed up in the upper left field stands there was an empty section, and that's where the drum corps would end up after it changed. What was really funny was how long it took us to go from our changing area to those stands. It took at least 2 to 3 innings until we reached it. But at least I can say I played at Yankee Stadium.
In 1968, the Corps made a recording celebrating 40 years of existence. It consisted of 13 songs and was titled Down Main Street. Another recording was made in the 70s, which was titled Danbury Drum Corps in Concert. During the 70s and early 80s and late September, the Corps participated on weekends in a very short parade held in the afternoon at the Great Danbury State Fair. It was basically an agricultural fair that had a midway, a big top, along with a racetrack and grandstand. It drew a large crowd from miles around. The parade snaked through the fairgrounds with various bands, floats, animals, and humorous characters. Many spectators lined up along the parade route to watch. After traversing through the grounds, the parade marched onto the racetrack oval that came around and passed by the grandstand, which was usually packed, waiting for the show to begin. The reward to the marchers was to be allowed free admission to the fair. Most members and their families took advantage of this privilege.
The Danbury Fair, we did that once a year. That was quite a nice time for us to go over there and parade. I don't recall how many years we did that, but we did it for quite a few years. I know Grassy Plain was one of the first ones to ever do it. And then we started going there, and it was really an enjoyable time for the Danbury Fair. In fact, we all miss it right now. We wished it was back.
Since the mid-'80s, the Danbury Fair Mall now occupies this location. In 1976, the big event for the country was the celebration of the bicentennial, and Danbury was no exception. The city hosted a huge parade down Main Street with the Corps in the lead. In 1977, the Corps celebrated its 50th anniversary. Many events took place. The highlight of the year was a trip to Disney World in Florida, in which the Corps marched in the afternoon parade through the streets.
Marching in Disney World is probably one of the highlights of my career. I think there's nothing like marching in front of that castle in front of all those people.
I'm pretty proud that my son Michael is approaching 20 years now. I think in fact, it's probably this year he's going to have 20 in. And I'm glad that he's going to join me in a 20-year club, and I feel quite happy about that.
A gala ball was also held at the Amber Room in Danbury, where various dignitaries and guests attended. In 1980, the local community held a rally at Danbury High School in support of the 52 American hostages held in Iran. The Corps supplied the music. It should be noted that during the years, the Corps has won many trophies for its marching and playing abilities. In 1980, the Corps won 70% of the first-place trophies in parades where prizes were awarded.
The standard marches that were used during the time We always associate John Philip Sousa because he was the king of the marches. Then we went on to some happy music. We put in some polkas. We put in some pop music. And present, they're in the corps, we're using pop tunes, show tunes, and what it really has done is it increased our roster of music to having a well-rounded repertoire.
In 1985, the city of Danbury celebrated its tricentennial with a huge parade, which the Corps led. Then they returned to the beginning and marched again with a float that ended the parade. The Corps is no different than other organizations in that new members are always needed. This booth was set up on Main Street in hopes of attaining them. On that day, during the parade, a plane flew a banner behind it, above the parade route, advertising the Corps. In 1987, the Corps enjoyed a trip to Washington, D.C., filling 2 buses with members and guests. This picture shows the people on the steps of the National Archives. Also that year, the Corps gave a concert to herald the arrival of Santa Claus to the newly constructed Danbury Fair Mall. In 1989, the Corps, along with the Greenwich American Legion Corps, marched together as a unit in the St. Patrick's Day Parade in Greenwich. In the late 80s and early 90s, the Corps participated in the Vietnam Memorial Dedication, the Rally Day Parade for Desert Storm, which was held on such a cold day that the saliva froze in the trumpets, and also the dedication of the Korean Memorial at Rogers Park. In the early 90s, the Corps gave concerts on stage at the Charles Ives Performing Arts Center, located on the west side campus of the Western Connecticut State University. The Corps traveled to a studio in New York City to film a segment of a documentary titled His Father's Song, a story about the young Charles Ives, a composer who was a Danbury native. The Corps' performance, as seen here, depicts Ives as being a complex and brilliant composer who maintained that he was able to keep up to 6 rhythms going in his mind at once, and that he could hear everything he wrote in his imagination.